you all came, and this is such an exciting event. I mean, I feel like Shibumi really, the thing I always try to cultivate is beauty and creativity and community, so I'm just really touched that this is happening. I want to just share shortly, like a real quick story of how this show came to be. Betsy is, where's Betsy? She was commissioning this gorgeous opal piece with one of Bob's opals. And she brought Bob and Barbara down to the gallery. And they came up the stairs and we were talking about the design and we were looking at different stones. And then Bob put his hands on the table and the sunlight was just beaming down. And I looked at his rings and I said, oh my gosh, were you a jeweler? Are you a jeweler? And he just lit up. Like it was just suddenly like, it was like a different person was there, you know. It's really being acknowledged for your creative life, I think is just something you always think about because, you know, it's not an easy life. It's a great life, but it definitely takes a lot of courage to go out there and make things and have people buy them. So anyway, then they told us they had this huge opal collection, and Barbara, who is very funny, just I really love her personality, had mentioned something about their huge opal collection, and I said, well, if you want to adopt me, kind of as a joke, but they left and I made Betsy her piece and she picked it up, and then I had this idea and I said, well, if they have a huge opal collection, and Bob's not making jewelry anymore, maybe he would want to donate them to my gallery artist and we can make something and honor Bob. So then I also had this idea that we would, you know, what I would want if I was at the end of my career is that, you know, other jewelers and makers get to keep making things and learning because it is such a fun thing. I mean, jewelry, there's endless things to learn. And so Silvera Studio is right up the street. It's on Virginia and San Pablo, which is very close to here, and I am kind of ashamed to say that I've never been there until I proposed this idea. So the proceeds of a pretty large portion of the opal is going to go to Silvera in Bob's name, and they're going to set up a scholarship fund. And they get to figure out how to use it, but so people can take classes that are a little bit stretched for money and keep learning. So we're so excited about that. And Bob, thank you so much, and Barbara for your collection. And I just want to know a little bit more about Bob, and I thought I'd just do a question and answer. And the other thing too about this whole show, I mean, I'd worked with opals a little bit, but his opals are truly magical. I mean, you probably have seen me posting a million things because every opal you photograph is so intensely beautiful. They are amazing. So, Bob, why don't you just tell us first how you got started in jewelry and what you loved about it?
My major in college was industrial design, where and this was back in Michigan, where you designed cars and refrigerators. and it progressed from there. And for 3 more credits in the art department at Michigan State, I took a jewelry course. And 2 of the first 2 pieces that I ever did are in the front room. One that I did for my mother, which was a long pendant, and a pair of cufflinks I did for my father, which were a laminate of sterling and ebony. And one thing led to another, and it really became what I wanted to do. And I had, in those days, this was back in the 50s, the early 50s, and if you wanted to stay out of the Army for a while, you went to ROTC, and that was one of the best opportunities that I had, was to stay in college and get the degree and then go get the 2 years that you had to be on active duty taken care of so that you could get on with making jewelry. And that's the way it got started. I think my major was, as I said, industrial design, and it was interesting that the Army career turned out to be a beautiful example of getting in the right place at the right. Oh, thank you. I was able to do design work, and I designed a guided missile museum and did some display work around the Pentagon and one thing and another. It was just one of the most beautiful ways for me to be in the military and not be in the military.
Artists are creative. They always think of ways around things, right?
Absolutely.
And I can really see that, like, postmodern 50s influence in your jewelry from some of the earlier pieces.
Yep. That a lot of you have in those books that of the pictures of my work.
They're right here, yeah. These are, if any of you guys come and just take a moment with Bob or just want to sit down and look, these portfolios are all filled with hundreds, if not 1,000 pieces he's made. They're categorized into rings, necklaces, and earrings or something like that. Anyway, there's
a little of everything.
Yeah, yeah.
At one point or another. And it was such a fantastic way for you to spend a military time. Was got to do design work and traveled all around the country to shows of designs that I did for the Army. And that led me to, because I was making jewelry all this time, and when it came time for me to get out of the Army, I was already with jewelry, and here I am.
So I was just talking about these portfolios, how many, like, hundreds of pieces they show. You've obviously done a lot of work. I heard that you started selling your jewelry at street fairs in the Bay Area.
Yes.
And with different clients. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Kay Sekimachi was a friend, and she and her sister and I did shows at their home on Milvia Street, where we showed some of my earlier work, and we did street fairs here, El Cerrito, Grant Avenue, all over the place. And my first commercial order I got from Fraser's. Some of you may remember Fraser's, which was a contemporary furniture store here in Berkeley. Anyway, that was how things got started. And as soon as I was able to get enough people coming to me at the festivals, I opened a store in Monterey, and in the downtown area, which started the people coming to me rather than me going to them, and that was kind of a go-to time of my life when there was a big change. And one thing led to another, and we wound up having galleries in Carmel and Santa Santa Fe, New Mexico, and one place, wherever I could find a retail place. And fortunately, at the time, I had an airplane, and so we were able to go around the country to one place or another. Anyway.
Sounds like a glamorous life. So is most of your work, you mainly work in, there's a little bit of silver work, but that seems like maybe that was your earlier work, and then you mostly work in 14 karat and precious stones. Are your pieces, like there's a lot of jewelers here and jewelry appreciators. Do you fabricate or did you wax the pieces?
I started out fabricating, but ultimately wound up that I had a better way of communicating my things to metal by doing almost all cast work. And you'll notice in the showcase, the ones that were fabricated were earlier pieces. The development went into the cast work because it gave a little bit more facility for me to let myself out into the metal.
I often think of people who work a lot casting and wax is like they're like sculpture. They're more like sculptors in a way.
Okay.
So that's instead of like technical builders. So your vision is waning, and I'm just wondering, do you still see designs, and do you miss being a maker? What do you miss most?
Well, the making is no longer really possible. I have no vision in this eye, and this is marginal. I can tell that there are a lot of people, but I wouldn't be able to tell you one from another. And so the jewelry has gone kind of to an appreciation rather than actually constructing it. That was the reason I collected stones, and I fell in love with opals very early on and got a really good friend who made annual trips to Australia, and he would come and go to Monterey first so that I had the first shot at what he had purchased on that trip. And that's why I had so many that it was a delight to be able to share it with all of your jewelers.
We had so much fun. I think anyone who made a piece that's here probably really, I mean, I couldn't believe how many people jumped to make a piece. It was really exciting. Are they mostly Australian opals?
Almost all. The Japanese sort of cornered the market on Mexican opals. There is one that I have here that is a museum piece, the big orange one. But that's one of a kind. So anybody with a spare $40,000,
step on up.
take 10. Anyway, opals just have an infinite variety. The opal that I have is, first of all, it's a weird shape. It's it's four-sided, but there aren't any right angles. They're all diagonal, and in the middle of this big stone is a little lake right smack in the middle of the stone that only shows up under bright light. And it makes the stone just jump off your hand. And that is a very rare piece. And when the ones that we established the connection with April about were just a whole series that she could pick from and share with other people, because at this stage of my life, it's a lot of giving back. I've been so blessed in so many ways. Anyway, I was going to where I went next, which was becoming a minister.
I was going to ask about that. I was so curious. That popped out on one of their visits. So tell us about that.
Well, I became they created a position for me as the international representative of our faith. And so I got to travel in Russia and England, South Africa, all around, and it was a beautiful way to communicate with a lot of people. And that's the basic part of my jewelry, is communicating with people, making the best possible piece for those people with their taste and my stuff.
It's fun. It really is truly fun to do custom work with a person in mind and mixing in your energy with theirs. It's very rewarding. So my last question, and I'll ask you if there's anything else you want to share. I always think behind every great man there's a great woman. And this is Barbara. And I want to know how she supported you in your career and life, and anything you want to say.
We have been together for, over 40 years?
Yeah.
And she's the impetus and a bit of a pain in the neck but she really keeps things on board. When I opened my first gallery, it was with 3 couples, and 5 of us were craftspeople, and Barbara was the brains of the business. And so she's been an essential part of any success that I've had since we got together.
Bob's 90th birthday is December 21st, and we are here to honor Bob. And again, thank you so much for the opals.
And for all of the jewelers who got an opal or opals, go to it.
Yeah, there's still some rolling in. We are still have a few late entries, but we're accepting them whenever they finish them.
Yeah, and the big thing is let the opals talk to you, because they're all alive. They have so many colors and shapes and whatnot that it's why I specialized in opals and had such a wild collection of them that I'm delighted to share with up-and-comers.
I have one question about the practical side. I was reading a little bit. Opals are about 3 to 10% water, which is what makes them so magical. And I did hear from an opal dealer that since your collection is very old, when opals have been around for a long time, that means they're very stable.
That's exactly true.
So you had experience, did you have any problems when you were making opal rings? Because you made a lot of rings for people. Do you have any thoughts about just the wearability of opals?
Well, in the old days, opals were more stable. There is a little bit more of a tentative nature, and because the structure of an opal is almost glassy, and that's why there were so many variations of doublets and triplets and whatnot, where they took layers of the opal, protected it from the top with clear quartz, and opaque stones on the bottom to give it stability and strength and whatnot. But most of the things that I did were either solid or boulder. And boulder opal was where the vein of opal was in an ironstone matrix, which gave it the stability and the solidity. And I did a lot of work, and a lot of the things that you chose for your people were boulders, weren't they?
Yeah, mostly boulders, yeah, yeah.
But they're very, very stable, and anything that comes from our collection has been around for a long time and probably isn't going to be flaking apart. Does anybody have any questions or any opals they want to talk about?
Who's your favorite grandchild?
Favorite child.
All right, that's a family thing. You guys can take that outside. Anyway, Barbara?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing.
Yeah.
Because, for Bob, because he can't see the details, that the collection of opal settings that you have out there and the display of them is just spectacular. And your artists are all very talented.
Thank you. And we displayed all the opals. We decided to kind of Anna Condal's ceramics, and so she's here. And that was a new kind of display thing that we tried. And as you all know, I love display. I love making things beautiful. And thank you. I wish you could see him, Bob. You would be so proud.
Thank you.
I think that's good.